You've been carrying this pain for so long, you stopped noticing how heavy it became. At first it was just a moment, a word, a silence, a loss, but you held it. You didn't mean to, but the body remembered, the heart repeated, and the mind, desperate to survive, whispered, "This must be who I am." That's how it begins, the fusion between pain and identity. You don't just feel abandoned, you start to be the abandoned one. You don't just carry rejection, you become someone who was never enough. Slowly, you forget, not everything, just the essential. You forget the version of you that existed before the wound, before the disappointment, before the silence swallowed your voice. And in the forgetting, a new self is born. Not your truth, but your defense. That's why nothing feels right anymore, isn't it? Why you smile but feel hollow. Why you succeed and still feel behind. Why you keep searching, not for answers, but for yourself. You look in the mirror and see someone tired. Tired of pretending. Tired of explaining. Tired of fighting for a place you should have never had to earn. You think it's weakness. It's not. It's memory. The soul trying to remember something you forgot. Something simple, sacred, unshakable. You are not the pain. You were never the pain. But you got so close to it. You started speaking in its voice, walking with its posture, living in its name. What if all this suffering is not a curse, but a signal? What if it's the ache of your real self, trapped beneath the noise, trying to surface? And what if everything you feel right now is not the end of you, but the beginning of the moment you finally come home, to a version of you untouched by the wound, to a self you don't have to perform. Just remember, it starts quietly, not with a scream, but a slow bending, a shrinking, a choice made over and over. If I hide this part of me, maybe I'll be safe. We all do it. We learn how to smile when we want to cry. We nod when we want to scream. We become experts at vanishing in plain sight. You didn't mean to lie about who you are, but when the world teaches you that love is conditional, you start editing yourself just to be tolerated. That's the beginning of the invisible cage. You wear the mask so well, even you forget it's a costume. You perform the version of you that gets applause, not peace. And maybe for a while it works. They like you, they admire you. They say, "You're so strong." But they don't see you, not really, because they've never met the real you. Just the version that never makes them uncomfortable. You become the peacekeeper, the achiever, the caretaker, the perfect one, the strong one. And somewhere in that silent performance, you disappear. Not your body, not your function, but your essence. The part of you that cries without shame. The part of you that says no without guilt. The part of you that doesn't need to be explained because it simply is. But where did it go? Where did you go? Here's the trap. The pain you tried to hide didn't leave. It just changed clothes. It became a pattern. It became a personality. It became the mask. And you started confusing survival with identity. You thought, "This is who I am." But it was just the self you had to become in a world that didn't know how to hold your truth. Can we be honest? You're tired. Not just tired like need more sleep. Tired like need to stop pretending. There's a part of you screaming from behind the glass, asking to be let out, asking to be heard, asking to be real. But you've spent so long protecting others from your truth, you forgot how to speak it. You forgot that love that requires a mask is not love. An acceptance that needs you to shrink is just quiet rejection. Let's ask something dangerous now. If you didn't have to be liked, who would you be? If you weren't afraid of being left, what would you say? If you stopped performing, what truth would finally breathe? The Buddhist path calls this the root illusion, mistaking the false self for the real one. You begin to think the role is the soul, but a role is always written by someone else. Your essence isn't a character. It's the silence before the story. You don't need to become someone else to be worthy. You need to remember the someone you were before you forgot. And that remembering, it starts with this quiet rebellion. Stop performing. Stop folding yourself into shapes just to be small enough for people's comfort. Stop apologizing for your depth. Stop editing your softness. Because the moment you stop acting is the moment your truth gets to live. And it will feel terrifying, and it will feel like loss. But the only thing you'll lose is the prison you mistook for home. This isn't about becoming a better version of you. This is about no longer betraying the one that's been buried beneath the act. And maybe that's why you're here. Not to learn who you are, but to unlearn who you were told to be. Drop the mask for a moment. In the comments, write as if no one's watching. Who were you before the pain taught you to hide? What part of you have you been silencing just to be accepted? This is your space. Write it like a whisper finally being heard. Who are you? Underneath it all, pain doesn't scream. Not at first. It waits. It sits quietly in the corners of your chest. It tugs at your breath when the room goes silent. It hides in the way you say, "I'm fine," with eyes that forgot how to believe it. Most of the time, we don't even know it's shaping us. We think we're just being realistic or mature, when what we really are is bruised. Not every wound bleeds, some just whisper. They say things like, "Don't trust too much," "Don't love too deeply," "Don't be too honest." And so, without realizing, you build your life around the architecture of old injuries. It's subtle. You choose the safe option, the quiet room, the half smile. Not because it feels right, but because it doesn't hurt. You become cautious with your joy, careful with your hope, selective with your truth. Because somewhere along the way you learned that being fully you came with consequences. And this is how pain molds us. Not with force, but with repetition. You lose someone, and then you lose the part of you that dared to get close. You get rejected, and then you silence the part of you that speaks freely. You feel unseen, and then you shrink, until invisibility feels like safety. And before you know it, the life you live is not your own, but the life designed by your past wounds. The Buddhist path doesn't deny suffering. It bows to it. It sits with it, without running, without labeling it as bad or wrong. Because suffering is not the enemy. Denial is. And silence, that's the most dangerous kind. Not the peaceful kind, but the silence where your truth goes to die. There's a difference between peace and numbness. One liberates, the other suffocates. Can we stop here for a second? Look back, gently. Not to dwell, but to recognize. Which moments reshaped your voice? What grief taught you to stay quiet? What heartbreak made you hard? What absence made you forget your own presence? These are not just moments. They're mirrors. They show you where you lost yourself. But here's the quiet miracle. If pain had the power to mold you, awareness has the power to free you. You are not the pattern. You are the witness. You are not the wound. You are the space that holds it with compassion. When we stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What is this trying to awaken in me?" something shifts. You start to see pain not as identity, but as initiation. Not as punishment, but as presence. And in that shift, you begin to remember there was a version of you before the wound, and there will be a version of you after the healing. But neither of them is separate from the pain, because healing is not erasing the scar. It's learning how to live with it open, without shame. You don't have to be over it to be whole. You just have to stop letting it be your name. This is how pain teaches, not with answers, but with invitations, to soften, to slow down, to feel everything you were told not to feel, to stop building walls and start growing roots. The wound is not your enemy. It's the crack that lets your truth be seen. And maybe that's what you're starting to feel now. Not just sadness, but remembering. The part of you that's been silent is waking up. You've spent so long holding on to the version of you that hurt less, spoke less, needed less. Letting go feels like death at first, but maybe it's the first breath you've taken in years. Detachment is not cold, it's not distance, it's not apathy. It's the sacred art of no longer identifying with what was never truly you. We think we have to hold everything. The expectations, the roles, the guilt, the identity built from pain. But life, real, raw, breathing life, moves in open hands, not clenched fists. You don't have to carry what's been breaking you, not anymore. Picture this. You're walking through a forest. Each branch you grab is a past wound, a name someone gave you, a voice that said, "You're only lovable if you hide." But what if you let go of the branch? What if you didn't cling to the voice anymore? Would you fall? Or would you finally fly? We cling because it feels safe. We hold on because we think it defines us. But identity formed in fear is not truth. It's survival. And here's the paradox. The more you try to be accepted, the more you betray yourself. The moment you stop trying to be understood is the moment you become free. Letting go isn't abandoning who you are. It's returning to the part of you that never needed to prove anything. There's a quiet liberation in no longer being who people think you are, in no longer needing to convince anyone you're enough. And yes, it feels lonely, but only at first, because when you drop the costume, you stop attracting people who only loved the act. You start finding the ones who love what's underneath. Letting go is not passive. It's one of the most courageous things a soul can do. It's choosing to walk without armor, to speak without calculation, to love without pretending. You've been rehearsing for so long. What would it feel like to live unrehearsed? To wake up and not brace yourself? To sit in silence and not feel hollow? To look in the mirror and not feel like a stranger? There's a lightness that comes when you no longer carry what isn't yours. Pain taught you to grip tightly, but healing teaches you to release. Like exhaling after holding your breath too long. Like unclenching a fist that forgot how to rest. And when you release, something beautiful happens. You make space. Space for truth. Space for peace. Space for the version of you that's been waiting, not to be created, but remembered. In Buddhism, letting go is not rejection. It's non-attachment. It's not saying, "This didn't matter." It's saying, "This no longer owns me." Imagine that. Your past still exists, but it doesn't speak louder than your present. Your pain still echoes, but it doesn't dictate your worth. You still remember, but you're no longer defined by the memory. This is the quiet revolution, the sacred shedding, the act of choosing your truth over your trauma. And no, it won't always feel easy, but it will feel honest. And that's enough. So if you feel like something inside you is slipping away, maybe it's not your identity dissolving. Maybe it's just your false self finally letting go. There's a moment when the noise inside you gets so loud, you can't hear your own soul anymore. Not because it's gone, but because you've been listening to everything else, the fears, the doubts, the expectations. But then something breaks, not you, the illusion. And in that fracture, a silence begins. Not emptiness, not numbness, but a sacred quiet. The kind that doesn't demand anything from you. It just is. This is the moment where healing begins. Not as a triumph, but as a surrender. Because you've fought long enough. You've tried to fix, to change, to perfect. And it only pulled you further away from what matters. There's no more fixing to do. No more proving. No more pretending. Just being. Buddhism calls it coming home to what is. No resistance, no war. No need to be more than this breath, this body, this moment. You've carried your pain like a name, but you were never broken. You were just buried, beneath the conditioning, beneath the fear, beneath the story someone else wrote for you. But now, the story ends. Not in some dramatic twist, not in fire or thunder, just silence. And in that silence, a return to the you that doesn't need a reason to be loved, to the you that doesn't have to become anything to be enough. What if you stopped trying, stopped running, hiding, fixing? What if you sat with everything you are, the confusion, the longing, the beauty, the scars? Could you learn to love yourself, not in spite of your pain, but through it? That's the truth few will ever tell you. Healing isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering the self that was never wounded in essence, the observer, the awareness, the quiet witness inside you that never stopped watching, never stopped waiting. It doesn't need words. It doesn't need a reason. It just needs presence. Let go of the need to explain, to label, to understand everything. The mind can't walk where the soul is leading. This is not a path of answers. It's a path of acceptance. And when you start walking it, something strange and sacred unfolds. You stop needing to heal, because you stop believing you're broken. You stop searching, because you realize there's nowhere to get to. Just this, just here, just now. So take a breath, not the kind that keeps you surviving, but the kind that says, I am still here, and that's enough. The wound may still ache. The questions may still come, but your fight with yourself is over. No more masks, no more mirrors, just the quiet truth of your being. Maybe that's all you ever needed, not to be fixed, but to be seen. And now, you see you. So sit with that. Let the silence do what words never could. And if you listen closely, beneath the noise, beneath the history, you'll hear it. Not the pain, not the fear, but the steady, sacred hum of who you've always been. And maybe, just maybe, you'll whisper back, welcome home.